Welcome to the Haws Corporation webinar presentation of ANSI, ISEA, Z3581, and emergency shower eyewash compliance. In order to receive a certificate and credit, you will need to attend for the duration of the presentation. Within 24 hours of this session being completed, you will receive an email from AEC Daily with a link to access your certificate. Your credit will be reported to the AIA within 10 business days. We thank you for attending today. We hope you enjoy the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. Hope you're having a bright start to your day. We're going to talk about ANSI, ISEA, the Z3581 standard, 2014, that is. Cover emergency shower and eyewash compliance, and give it an A to Z talk through today. So to get into it, just to get started, I want to bring something to your attention right away, and that's that you can post questions at any time. Use that control panel, post the questions into the chat, and we'll catch it on the back end. Towards the end of the webinar, we're going to be doing a Q&A session. We'll pull those questions from the chat, and I'll try to answer as many as I can before our time runs out. We will also follow up with an email after the webinar that will include a document that will have each of your questions and an answer to those questions from yours truly. So please feel free to submit those. We like questions. We're here to be a resource for you and to provide those answers. So feel free to throw those in there. The other thing is the webinar is going to be recorded. It'll be available on demand. It'll be sent to you in a follow-up email within about 24 to 48 hours. We have to put our everything together, our email together, and shoot it out to you. We're going to launch poll questions during the presentation. They're brief, but they really do help us to continue to improve this product for you. Make sure that we're reaching you with the information that you're looking for. Okay, so your participation is greatly appreciated on those. And then a follow-up survey will be sent out sometime after the webinar, and we'll buy a coffee for your participation in that survey. A little $5 Starbucks gift card from Allie and me. And speaking of Allie and myself, my name is Justin Dunn. I'm a Senior Field Marketing Specialist here at Haws. I've been with the company for about 9 years. I am a pro at ANSI, ISEA, ADA, emergency equipment, drinking fountains, etc. Everything under the Haws umbrella, and I'm here to help you. So, and talk you through ANSI today. And with me is Allie. If you would say hi real quick, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Allie McCombs. I'm the Marketing Project Coordinator here at Haws. I've been with Haws for almost 2 years now, and I'm just going to be here today helping run the back end and pull questions during this webinar.
Awesome, thank you, Allie. So for our agenda today, what is the standard? The significant requirements of the standard. I'm going to talk you through some how to test instructions for the emergency equipment. We're going to go over best practices, resources for achieving compliance at the end of the webinar, and then we'll launch into that Q&A, get you some additional information on how to contact us, how to what to do in the scenarios that you're coming up with as we present this information, and get all of that to you. So to kickstart this, let's get into our first poll question.
Alrighty, getting into our first poll question of the day. Which best describes your role in choosing showers and eye face washes? Please select one from the following. We have place the order, install and or maintain product, specify products and plans, decide or make recommendation, or I do not have a role. Go ahead and please choose one of the following. Like I mentioned before, I will be handling these questions on the back end or poll questions. So just feel free to please input. We appreciate any response. It really helps us to help you. I'm going to give you all a few more seconds here. Again, I greatly appreciate all of your participation. Alrighty, thank you.
All right, with that closed, let's get into the first section here, and that is who is OSHA? I think most of you probably know who OSHA is. They're the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, the agency responsible for regulating emergency showers and eyewash facilities, and their standard is 29 CFR 1910.151C. It's under medical services and first aid. And this is all the information we get. It says where the eyes or body of any person may be exposed to injurious corrosive materials, suitable facilities for quick drenching or flushing of the eyes and body shall be provided within the work area for immediate emergency use, which is great, but it doesn't tell me how, it doesn't tell me where, when, pick a W word. It doesn't give me any of that information, and that is where the Z3581 standard comes in and why it is so important. Okay, the ANSI Z3581-2014 is really insurance against something going wrong in your facility. Okay, if you adhere to this and you look at it and you take it seriously and you ensure your emergency equipment is in compliance with this, then you can reduce injuries and fatalities, lower workplace risk, lower lost time and money, both for the employee and for the employer, right? There may be litigation, there may be, additional hospital costs and things like that. We can help lower all of that by the employee receiving proper first aid as quickly as possible, right? Now, OSHA stepped up enforcement, particularly for employers who have a history of serious or repeated violations. So those are two of the most serious violations. On August 1st, 2016, OSHA fines have increased by 80% since 1990. They had not increased for some reason. They weren't adjusting for inflation, and now it'll go up year over year by 2% to adjust. So really, it's more important than ever to really make sure you're taking this seriously. Here's some examples across the U.S. Just so you have an idea of what types of violations are being caught and how wide a variety of fines that we can see for issues with these violations. Now, this is all public information. You can find this on OSHA. You can find this online, so if you want to do more research into these, etc., they're all available. And that information will bring us to our second poll. Allie, if you would launch that, please.
All right, so our next question is an interactive poll question. This one is, what do you think the average OSHA fine is? Please select one from the bottom. We have $0 to $1,000, $1,000 to $10,000, $11,000 to $25,000, or $26,000 to $100,000. This is an interactive poll question, so it's a little different than your standard poll question. The only difference is that we're going to get to see how everyone selected at the end, and then I will go over the results. So I will give you all a few more seconds here to vote, and then we will go over responses. And with that, I am going to close this poll and share the results. So based on everyone's voting, we did see that 1% thought the average OSHA fine was $0 to $1,000. 38% thought that the average OSHA fine was $1,000 to $10,000. 44% said the average OSHA fine was $11,000 to $25,000, and 17% thought the average OSHA fine is $26,000 to $100,000. Thank you all for participating in this.
All right, so moving on, what we want to get into is kind of the history of the standard itself. So the ISEA, the International Safety Equipment Association, wrote the standard. ANSI is really the vehicle for distribution of those standards, and OSHA references the ANSI standard during inspections and violation reporting, and it is the recognized source for guidance to comply with their own 1910.151C. Now, it was first published in 1981. It's had many revisions since. In 2009 and 2014, we got some of the most important revisions to the standard that we've had ever, including a temperature range for water delivery, which was so incredibly important. And in 2014, some changes that directly impacted manufacturers. Happy to say that we were well ahead of the game there, and didn't have to make any changes, but that's what this was geared towards, was ensuring some standardization across emergency equipment. So nobody got weird with it. Now, significant requirements and how to test. Number one, you got to be testing your equipment, okay? Weekly minimum performance requirements has to be met, has to be tested, but it's simple. It's really a simple process. I know emergency equipment can be kind of messy, right? You have all different brands. Some of them do not, you're going to get spray patterns that are spraying 5 feet one way and 5 feet another way, but it is incredibly important to test these and ensure they're working properly. Otherwise, one, we're not going to discover anything that's wrong, and two, well, I'll show you number two here in a second. But all that has to happen is that you visit the unit, activate the unit, the Eyewash or iFacewash, and the shower head, whatever it is that is currently there. And the duration of that activation has to be long enough to clear out the dead leg. That's it. You get some nasty, gross water back there, and we need to ensure that we are clearing that out on a regular basis. For portable equipment, self-contained stuff that is not connected to a water line, all that is required is a visit to the unit, open it if it's possible, ensure there's enough water in there to meet the minimum requirement from the manufacturer. There's usually a fill line on it, or a pressure gauge if it's a pressurized unit. Ensure it's full, ensure it's charged, and move on. That's absolutely it. If you're using a preservative type of substance, then you usually have about 4 years, up to 3 years if you're using certain devices. So that's all that's required. Weekly visitation to the portal. Now, I know you're asking yourself, but Justin, what happens if I don't test? Well, that's a great question, guys. Thank you for asking that. This is what's going to happen. You're going to get the chocolate wedding fountain over there on the left, Gatorade, coffee, concentrated evil. I don't know what that is up on the top left. Maybe they struck oil. You're going to get some nasty stuff coming out of the pipes, okay? Nobody wants this going into their eyes and face as they're already dealing with an emergency, but that's what's going to happen. And realistically, it is important that if you're covered in nasty corrosives or some other nasty substance, unfortunately, that you are using this equipment and this water, whatever is coming out of the water line, because it's probably best to deal with your new case of Legionella later on and get this corrosive substance off of you. So make sure you're cleaning out the lines, clear out that dead leg, and you'll be good to go. Now, on an annual basis, you have to test the emergency equipment from head to toe. Okay, some version of what you see here on the right is what you're going to need. You're going to need a checklist, something that is going to walk you through every step of what's required for checking the emergency equipment. There are lots of versions out there. Get your hands on one. We'll send one out after the webinar so you have something in your hand. Okay. Now that takes us to poll question number 2. Allie, if you would, please.
All right, getting into the second standard poll question. What are you likely to do after today's webinar? Check all that apply. Do not answer if the question does not apply. From the options below, we have do a full test using the ANSI checklist Haws provides, contact Haws for more info on ANSI, educate others, order product to become compliant, specify the right type of equipment. I will give you all some more time to select your options. Again, just wanted to reiterate, we appreciate your participation in this. So with that, thank you everyone, and I will be closing this poll.
Those are really important to us. We really greatly appreciate you participating in those. Thank you guys. All right, now what you're gonna need, because I'm gonna walk you through the standard, I'm gonna show you what's required, and I'm gonna show you how to test for those things, but you need to understand what kind of tools you need in hand. You need a tape measure. some form of tape measure, okay? An eyewash gauge, I'll show you where that eyewash gauge comes from, how we understand how to make it, and what it does here in a little bit. You'll need a 5-gallon bucket with a 2-gallon water line marked on it, okay? And I will also instruct you on how that is used. You'll need a shower sock and pole, because they call them the drench showers for a reason. Thermometer, so we can check the temperature, and that checklist that I mentioned before, so that we can ensure we're not missing anything and we are testing in line with what the standard requires. Now, number one, the equipment needs to be accessible within 10 seconds or 55 feet. 55 feet was added later because 10 seconds was too hard to measure. We're all built differently, you know. 20-year-old Justin compared to, you know, 38-year-old Justin can move at a different speed. So it's really important, we believe, to stick with the 55-foot measurement, make sure the equipment is within that range from the hazard. Don't worry about the 10 seconds. We don't think that's honestly terribly useful. I hope in further iterations of the standard, they remove the 10 seconds and stick with the hard measurable distance of 55 feet. The 10 seconds really, the reason it's included and is because obviously we want you to get to that equipment as quickly as possible, okay? The faster, the better, certainly for more corrosive, more hazardous substances, but really anything, just dirt in your eye is, you know, that is going to do damage over time. You need to get to this equipment very quickly, so the closest you can get to the hazard with the emergency equipment, the better, okay? So keep that top of mind as we go on. Just make sure that it's within that range, and that it has to be free of obstructions, okay? These are very unfortunate and very real world examples you have over here on the right. Make sure that hoses, piping, your kitchenware, whatever, rat traps, I think is on the top left there, are out of the way entirely. We don't need to take extra steps and make this more difficult for the victim to reach the equipment and to activate it. Now, it has to be on the same level as the hazard. We can't have containment berms, steps, and things of that sort in the path of travel. It has to be clear, obstruction-free. We don't want to make an obstacle course on the way to the emergency equipment, okay? It also has to be well lit. It has to be easily identifiable with highly visible signage, okay? You're going to get situations like you see here on the right, okay? These will blend in very easily with the background and with the environment, you know, outdoor or indoor, if there's no signage. Signage is so important so that you can, you already might not have the best use of your eyesight in this emergency, right? It's usually a spray or something that is affecting you, and the likelihood that it's going to affect your eyes is really high. So signage, something you can spot and start moving to very quickly, is very important. Okay, so make sure it's easy to see and it's high visible signage. Okay, the other thing is that the unit has to deliver a full for flushing fluid for a full 15 minutes. Okay, it's a lot of time. Okay, 15 minutes, that's a lot of water, even at your best case scenario, right? We're pumping out, you know, 260 gallons per minute for this equipment. But if you're, but these are not all built equally. You might be getting up to 400 gallons per minute, okay? And running these things for a full 15 minutes, which is required on an annual basis, may be incredibly difficult to do. So ensure that the water source, your supply, is capable of fulfilling that full 15 minutes of run time. And if you're outdoors, I mean, let it rip, right? Let it run for a full 15 minutes, really clean out the line and ensure that it's capable of doing that at least once a year, just to meet your annual requirements. Now, outlets have to be protected from airborne contaminants. Okay, we gotta have dust covers in place. Dust covers can look quite different from brand to brand. Just make sure the outlet of the water is fully covered. For portable equipment, that's usually a cap that's going on the tank, keeping the water that will be flowing out of it safe from debris and water or contaminants from building up in there, okay? Now the dust covers have to be self-removing. That can either be by the water pressure, pushing the dust cover off of the unit, or it could be an automated sort of dust cover controlled by the paddle. So something that is self-removing based on activation, a mechanical sort of dust cover that's going to be removed. But it has to be self-removing, cannot take extra steps to take that off. Now, next, the unit has to go from off to on 1 second or less, okay? This is really important, and it has to remain on, like you see here in the video, without the use of the operator's hands. Okay, so you can see he's activating the shower, it's running, he can fully take his hands off of it, he's putting his face into the eye face wash, and it's staying on indefinitely. We cannot have self-closing valves, which I'll show you some examples here in a second. And you can see as it's activated, it's going from off to on in 1 second or less, and that's per device on this. So the eye face wash is under 1 second, the shower is under 1 second, okay? Now the reason it's worded this way is so that you could have multiple steps that can happen very quickly to turn on a piece of equipment, okay? Nothing is saying 1 step inside of the ANSI standard, it's in 1 second or less, okay? So you might have to twist something and throw a valve or something like that, or align the eye face wash and then hit a push paddle, things like that. Here's some great examples. So again, off to on 1 second or less, and without the use of the operator's hands. We cannot hold a self-closing valve open, okay? I can pat my head, I can rub my belly at the same time. I can't hold an eye face wash open, hold a shower open, hold my eyes open, remove my clothing. I can't do all of those things at the same time. Okay, so we want stay open valves in place. If you see something like this with springs on it, this needs to be removed, it needs to be replaced. The other example I have here over on the right is another example. Not only is that a self-closing valve on there, on that drench hose, Eyewash type unit that's on the wall, but the eyes, the alignment, there's no way you could activate that, let go, and use that at the same time. You'd have to hold it, okay? Otherwise, it would just be considered a drench hose. So also that outlet makes me a little nervous down there. But so make sure that it is aligned in a way so once it's activated, you can completely let go and rinse your eyes out. Now, eye washes must deliver 0.4 gallons per minute. Eye face washes have to deliver 3 gallons per minute, and a shower has to deliver 20 gallons per minute as a bare minimum, okay? Anything over that is totally allowed, but we do have restrictions built into the standard, things that are gonna keep us from making the water too injurious, you know, too extreme for us to stand in and to utilize. And I'll go over that. Obviously, if you have a combination unit, say an eye face wash and a drench shower, then you'd have a minimum of 23 gallons per minute that you'd have to pump out. That's an 1.25 inch pipe that you would need to plumb to that. That's like the bare minimum size for like a combination shower. For just an eye wash or an eye face wash by itself, probably a 1/2 inch line is totally fine. Now, the unit has to provide a controlled flow of flushing fluid, and it has to be at a velocity low enough to be non-injurious to the user, okay? Now, imagine for a second, you've been exposed head to toe in corrosive materials, right? Your skin, your body is already in really bad shape, and you're gonna step under something that's pumping out 30 to 40 gallons per minute, okay? That is gonna feel absolutely horrific, okay? We want a controlled flow. We want something at a velocity similar to what you see here in the video, small water droplets, even across the victim, that is going to rinse you off very quickly, okay? More water, like certainly over 20 GPM, is not going to rinse you faster. It's just gonna drown you standing up and peel you like an onion, okay? You need a controlled flow of water coming out of these units. So we don't want this to be a horrific experience for the victim. Okay, we want to focus on victim comfort, definitely. Now, I want to show you what happens when you have too much water and when you have too little water. Okay. Now on the left here, you have what I call the brain washer, ceiling tile washer. This is an injurious flow. There is no chance that you could keep your face and your eyes in this unit and be okay over 15 minutes. This is going to feel awful. I'll tell you right now, best case scenario, right? Soft, gentle flow coming out of the eye wash or eye face wash. It's still pretty tough over 15 minutes. Honestly, it's uncomfortable. It's highly necessary. You're going to be much more comfortable than what you see here in the photo for sure. But this is going to be unbearable. Okay, we have to dial that back. Now, if you have too little flow, right? Pick your favorite eye on the right side there. That is not what we want to see. That is going to be a hard decision to make right there, and we don't want to put somebody in that situation. So make there's enough water for it to work correctly, not so much that you're getting an injurious experience. Now, the gauge that we measure this with, and I'll explain here in a minute how it's used, but it was designed by the ANSI standard. They gave us this drawing. They said, hey, this is based on average human anthropometrics. This is where your eyes usually are as a human. This is how the gauge is built. Use this to measure how the eye wash or eye face wash is performing. Make sure that it's meeting the gauge, and we're good. And I'll show you how it's used. So you want to measure 8 inches above the head of the device. Place the gauge there and slowly lower it. Okay. Now slowly lower that gauge until it meets the gauge guideline. So here's an overhead view. You can see I'm lowering it, and there we go. We have each of the eye streams meeting dead center on that gauge circle. That's representing your eyes. This is usable. This is fine. This is, if in an emergency, this is going to be perfectly aligned with your face and your eyes, and is going to be usable. It also assures us that there is enough water coming out here, at least the bare minimums, based on our requirements as a manufacturer to make this equipment, that there's enough water coming out of here and is going to be useful in emergency. Okay, so use the gauge, pick one up. This is how you test it. Now, the flow pattern coming from the heads of the device have to be within 33 to 53 inches from the floor, at the top of the flow pattern, wherever that is. Okay, that keeps us from getting those injurious ceiling tile washers, the injurious spray coming out of it. Okay, it has to be dialed back. The reason for the 33 to 53 is, again, it's based on average human anthropometrics. When we bend over to utilize this equipment, our body is right, and we can place our face within that range really comfortably. Okay, if it's over 53 inches, there are not many of us that are tall enough to utilize that easily, certainly over 15 minutes. And below 33 inches, that's crazy. That's so low. That would be difficult. You'd be down on your hands and knees trying to use that. So we want to make sure that it's in a comfortable range. You're standing so that it can fully flush you easily, and it has to be within that range. Also, the heads of the device have to be free of obstruction by 6 inches around the head. So make sure you're not going to hit your head on anything. The flow pattern is not going to be obstructed. Now we need to test the shower. This is an incredibly important step. Lots of showers don't get tested, and that's because they make a mess. You know, for some, it might be a kind of a scary process. I'm so used to it. I think even the confidence in which I teach people to do it makes people nervous, because some people have done this and certainly they've walked away with a surprise baptism. That shower head that's a lot of water coming out of there. And if you're not holding on tight, you might make a mess, and you might be taking a soggy walk through your facility, which I have. Day one, when I first tested a shower, took the walk of shame through the Haws building. Now, what you're seeing here is a correct testing procedure in the photo. So what we need to do, place a thermometer in the bottom of the bucket, place a shower sock firmly around the shower head, and run it down into the bucket. Okay, make sure the bottom of it is in the bucket before you start, or you're gonna get some soggy loafers. Activate the eye wash and the eye face wash if one is present. Okay, if it's a combination unit, that's how it's designed to run, is simultaneously at the same time. So ensure the shower is running while the eye wash or eye face wash is running, and that's gonna help us capture a very dangerous type of compliance issue that I'll talk to you about here in a second. Now activate the shower for 6 seconds. Okay, do your 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, all the way up to 6. Check that the 2-gallon water level mark is met on the bucket after you stop that 6-second test. Okay, this is just how a nurse would test your pulse at the hospital, right? They're not going to count for a full minute. They're going to count for 10 seconds and they're going to do the math. This is the same thing. 6 seconds, 2 gallons, times 10, 60 seconds, and 20 gallons. Okay. Now, the shower flow pattern, this is difficult to test. Okay. But what you have to ensure here is that it is 20 inches wide at 60 inches above the floor. Okay. That's average human shoulder spacing. And the center of the column has to be free of obstructions by 16 inches from the center of the column. And that's just ensuring there's nothing in your way. There's no obstructions. You can't have pipe or anything else running through there, okay? And again, this is a messy test, right? If you have a drain nearby and you're in a facility where you can let it rip, go for it. But there are definitely situations where this is, I mean, you're in a clean lab, you can't just let this rip. So ensuring that you've got 20 gallons during your bucket test, the 2-gallon water line is being met. There is no damage to the shower head is a great indicator that this is working properly underneath that shower sock, okay? Now the shower head, again, this is Bill, this is my coworker, he's a couple offices down. He is using a tape measure, he's measuring 20 inches across, 60 inches above the floor, ensuring that we have the proper flow pattern. If it's too low, it's not gonna wash you properly. If it's too high, the water's not gonna be concentrated on you as well as it should be. Okay, it's gonna be too widespread. Now with that shower flow pattern, I'm gonna warn you about something, okay? This isn't technically in the standard, but this is good to watch out for. There's lots and lots of equipment out there uses the shower head as a way to force the water down around the user. It's gonna correct something that I might be the only one that calls it this, but the donut effect, okay? It's gonna make a circle of water around the user. Watch the footprint of that equipment and ensure that it is actually flushing directly down onto the user and it's spread out across the user, okay? That is a great way to ensure that somebody is getting proper flushing, okay? And there's not a vacuum of space and water in the middle of that shower flow pattern. Now the shower head has to be 82 to 96 inches above the floor. Again, too low, the pattern's gonna be too tight, too high, it's not gonna rinse you appropriately. Just measure with a tape measure to the outlet of water from the shower head, okay? And the pull rod, same thing, use a tape measure from the floor where the user is gonna be standing to the pull rod, the very bottom of it, make sure it does not exceed 69 inches from the floor. That's the maximum height, okay? Any higher, it may be difficult for the shorter amongst us to reach it. Lower, doesn't matter, right? All of us can reach it. If it's lower, it doesn't matter. We don't want it to obstruct the eye wash or the eye face wash and make it more difficult to use, but it can be installed lower than that without issue. And a pull rod does not have to look like a pull rod. It can be a push paddle, it can be many other different things, so long as it is under 69 inches. Now the unit has to be positioned so that one user can use it at the same time. An eye wash, eye face wash, and a shower head. They have to be aligned for one user. These are not for separate instances, but they are installed like that frequently, okay? It's really upsetting. People just throw away the instructions and you find the shower head pointing one way and the eye face wash pointing the other way, and they're not for separate instances. Make sure they're aligned for one user, okay? The other thing here, and I mentioned it briefly earlier that I'd mention it later, when you're testing these and you have the eye face wash on and you're testing the shower, watch for starvation, okay? This is sneaky. It's not found because a lot of people aren't testing their showers. But when you activate that shower, the water is going to want to take the path of least resistance to the unit. That's to the shower head. Okay, that's pumping at the highest GPM, and it will starve your eye face wash or eye wash if you do not have flow controls in place. Okay, you have to create that back pressure to feed the eye wash or eye face wash. Otherwise, the shower head alone will starve the unit And now you have to decide, am I going to save my eyes or am I going to save my skin, right? We don't want people to force into that situation. Now, shut-off valves have to be locked open, okay? I suggest using a lotto device, so there's some sort of procedure in place for having to replace them. But if there's a shut-off valve to the equipment within the employee's reach, lock it open, okay? That way maintenance can visit, they can unlock it, turn it off, do any maintenance they need to do, and then reopen it and lock it open, okay? This is so that we can ensure that nobody can just walk by and willy-nilly turn off the valve. I call this the duh clause. Make sure you quiz your employees on the location of the equipment. That you really want your employees to know what they might be exposed to in a particular area, where the emergency equipment is, and how to locate and activate that emergency equipment. Okay, this is so incredibly important. Okay, I guarantee if you go out on your floor and you ask your employees, you're going to get a couple that have no idea. It's really important they know where to go and how to activate it. Not all manufacturers make this stuff the same, so make sure they understand how to activate it and what it does. Now, where the possibility of freezing conditions exist, you have to have freeze protected equipment in place, okay? Something like you see on the right, jacketed, heat traced, all brands of equipment have this type of stuff. This is so important, okay? Because if this freezes, right, there's no water that's gonna come out of this in an emergency. So ensure that it is heated, the pipes are warm, and it is preventing what would be a really awful scenario. Now the tepid flushing fluid, the water coming out of this, which is just potable water. All you need is potable water, okay? Doesn't have to be some special kind of water. As long as it's potable, it is considered flushing fluid for emergency equipment. Has to be between 60 and 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees to 38 degrees Celsius for my homies up north. 75% of ophthalmologists say that if having that tempered water is important, citing that it can increase the chances that a victim will remain in the 15 minutes of flushing fluid from that equipment, okay? If it's way too cold, they may not remove their clothing. If it's way too hot, you might have the same scenario. It's gonna burn, right? It's certainly your eyes. So let's talk through that real quick. Now, if it's too cold, what you're risking, right? And think about this too. The outer layer of your skin, your insulation for your body may already be damaged, okay? You are going to just bleed heat from your body, okay? So cold water may lead to hypothermia, cold shock, cardiac arrest, and other dangerous situations to be in when you're already in a crisis, okay? And first responders are trying to get you to the hospital as quick as possible, right? And you may be outdoors, you may be in a windy situation, you might be out in the snow. So ensuring the water is tepid, that it's high enough to keep your body semi-regulated. We suggest 85 degrees is kind of that magic temperature. It's not like a warm, nice, hot shower, but it's not cold enough to do any harm to you after 15 minutes, okay? Now, if it's too hot, hyperthermia, right? We're heating up too quickly. We might get heat stroke. We will be confused. We need to hopefully be able to clearly communicate to first responders when they get there, right? They may not for sure know what you were exposed to, and it is important to be able to communicate. Hopefully there's a supervisor or somebody there that is helping and can communicate that, but there may not be, okay? That is incredibly important. The scalding of soft tissue, our eyes, starts at 100 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Skin burns start at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest water I've run into was 127 degrees. And that was in the basement of the facility, and I dang near burned my hand through the shower sock. So, and there's no way you'd be able to stand there for 15 minutes. So watch for that. Hot water also can negatively react with certain chemicals. So it's important, try to aim for that 85 degrees. Also sticking within the range, Legionella can thrive in between 77 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? just to bring it full circle, make sure you're clearing out that line and clearing out those dead legs. Now, another type of equipment I need to bring to your attention, these photos are a little silly. These are more extreme examples, but not, unfortunately, uncommon. This is supplemental equipment, okay? Squeeze bottles. These are capable of flushing your eyes for like 30 seconds, 1 minute, something like that. Many manufacturers have these. These are intended so that you are, at a hazard, you get exposed, I can immediately grab a bottle, treat my eyes while I'm moving towards a primary plumbed piece of emergency equipment, something that can do 15 minutes, okay? But this is how we find them, unfortunately. The bottles are missing, they're long expired. You got the burn it out option down there, the paper towel holder, Windex, that one's frozen in the middle, and you have the spoon and knife option. Make sure that you are checking these regularly if you have them. Employees are not replacing them with something, and that you're getting the expiration dates checked regularly, and that they're only supplemental. You have to have primary equipment in your building. You cannot have only supplemental bottles. Okay, that's a big no-no. You may also have a single step. I told you earlier, can't have any obstructions, changes in level. You're allowed to have one single step, as long as it's into an enclosure or booth type of equipment, like you see here, okay? And that's in the appendix B5 under installation considerations, and that's because we can't manufacture this type of equipment to be flushed with the ground. We have, the point is water containment. Maybe you're dealing with chemicals that cannot hit the local waterways, and you have to capture it. That's what this would be for. If you're in a clean lab or a highly sensitive area with lots of electronics or something, we have to capture the water. This is so incredibly important. Or if we're shielding you from weather, whatever the case, with this, you're allowed one step so long as it's into an enclosure. The other consideration, also in B5, a door. You are allowed to have a door in between the hazard and the equipment so long as it meets certain criteria. Okay, number one, it has to be non-locking. You cannot approach that door, find out that it's locked, and you're in big trouble. The door has to open in the direction of the emergency equipment. So I have to be able to push my way out and through the door. Okay, I don't want to be able to stop and have to open a door towards me. It's going to cost me time. The other, and I think the most important one, the hazard has to be non-corrosive. If it is corrosive in any way, we cannot have a door in place. That emergency equipment should probably be in the room, or at least as close as possible and not obstructed, okay? And last, they have to be push bar or panic bar operated, just like you see the doors on the right. Now, a couple best practices real quick. Remove your contacts. Do not rub your eyes if you can help it, okay? At any point, if it's just on your arms and your forearms, it's likely going to spread. Try to touch your body as little as possible and get to the unit. But if it's in your eyes and if it's all over you, you have to get those contacts out, okay? Even if your fingers aren't contaminated and your face is, try not to rub your eyes, but get those contacts out, okay? They may melt, they may fuse to your eye, they might get pushed to the back of your eye and trap contaminants between the lens and your eyeball. So ensure that you are getting those out of your eyes, because once you hit that eye wash, it is going to force those contacts back behind your eyeball, okay? Disrobe completely. You gotta be in your birthday suit. That includes socks, shoes. It is not a day to be embarrassed in front of your coworkers. This is incredibly important. That contaminants, corrosive or otherwise, may get trapped between your clothing and your skin and continue to do damage to you if you do not get them off, okay? I suggest running to the equipment as quickly as possible, turning on the shower and disrobing in the shower spray, okay? This is important so that you want to get that flushing water on you as fast as possible. Now, with that, maybe install privacy curtains, okay? Give your employees a little bit of privacy while they're having maybe one of the worst days of their life. Look for something that is a 360 type of screen like this. There's a little pocket inside. You can, has a little robe in there so you can walk out with some decency for the first responders. This is a really good way to do this. Okay, so make sure you're considering that. Do a bump test before a high risk task. Okay, if you're going to do something particularly dangerous, go ensure that the emergency equipment is working properly. Okay, incredibly important. Now, also be cautious while assisting others to not contaminate yourself or others, right? If you are helping a coworker and you are going to put your hands on them, the likelihood that those corrosive materials or otherwise will damage you or damage others that you might touch, it's going to make the situation twice as bad. Ensure that you are yelling and screaming instructions at your coworkers on how to navigate to a piece of emergency equipment. Okay, do your absolute best to not touch them. Okay, this goes for first responders too. And why emergency equipment, showers, and eye face washes are so important. One of the main reasons we want all that stuff off of you so quickly is, one, so that we can stop the reaction. It's going to stop damaging you. Two, is if we don't get that off of you fully, all the way to the hospital, you are going to continue to be damaged and hurt and harmed by it, and possibly expose the first responders. Get to a shower as quick as possible. Really rinse your body off and ensure that that reaction is stopped and that chemical is off of you. Ensure the correct type of signage. Okay, I would be incredibly upset if I was running across a facility and I saw a combination sign that said there's a shower and eye face wash over there, and I found out it was only an eye wash. Okay, this happens more than I'd like to say. Ensure that the correct type of signage is in place so that communication there, I can quickly determine what it is that I'm running to and make a decision to go elsewhere if I need a shower and I know one's not there. I shouldn't have to say this, but here it is. Be cautious of proximity to electrical, okay? Outlets, electrical boxes, whatever, something daisy chained underneath your feet. Ensure that the area within a fairly good distance is free of electrical equipment, things that are going to, react negatively. You're going to have a bad situation on your hands if there's an outlet directly under the shower. And this happens a lot, and it's all based on plumbing code. There's nothing in this that says this in the standard itself. So watch out, please. Locate other first aid equipment nearby. If you have first aid kits, the stretcher, defibrillator, etc., put it right next to the emergency equipment. Make a first aid area. Everything's in one place. First responders will have what they need. Coworkers will have what they need if they're trained correctly, right? Everything's right there. This is incredibly important. Now, and lastly, clean your equipment regularly, okay? This is important. Regular dust, debris, etc., will settle on this type of equipment. Ensure that it is being cleaned and it is working properly and it is not getting caught into the outlets of for the heads. Okay. Last thing, well, last two things that I want to cover on that particular subject is, one, make sure you're using proper technique. Okay. Now, some of you might recognize this clip from The Office. That's the Nard dog there, but this is good technique. He's got his fingers in deep. He's lifting his eyelids and lowering them and really getting his eyes wide open and into the streams of that eye wash. This is so important, okay? Do not be shy about this step. Really dig in, lift your eyelids as wide as possible, and get that flushing fluid in and around your eyeball. This is incredibly important, okay? That is a real good technique there they've used in the show. Now, This is ANSI Z3581. And just a quick note, green is the location of safety equipment, okay? Ensure that your equipment, the area is color coded correctly, right? Nobody's gonna see green and think, oh, I should stay away from that. Green is very clearly the area that is going to be a safe location. Green is go, green is safe, green is first aid. Ensure that you are color coding your equipment correctly. Red is a danger stop, yellow caution, orange is a cut, crush, or otherwise injure, it's a warning. Blue is policies, and the other colors down there at the bottom are like, yeah, whatever you want to use them for. But safety is the color green, and make sure you're using that correctly in your facilities. And that brings us to interactive poll number 2.
All right. Interactive poll question number 2 is how much of your emergency equipment meets the ANSI ISEA Z3581-2014 standard? Please select one from the following. Is it 75% or more, 50% to 74%, 25% to 49%, 1% to 24%, or 0%? Please go ahead
This is my favorite.
on one of those options. Again, this is an interactive poll, so we will be sharing the results as soon as everyone has submitted.
I would love the answers to this.
And we are going to read the results now. Thank you, everybody, for submitting your answers. It looks like 58% of you said 75% or more, 24% of you said 50 to 74%, 10% said 25 to 49%, 5% of you said 1 to 24%, and 3% of this group said 0%. Again, thank you all for participating.
Now, all facilities are different, okay? But we've done a lot of work here to capture that data. And so I'm going to give you some very real world statistics here for a second, okay? The pie chart you see here on the right is based on thousands of emergency units surveyed, okay? That giant Pac-Man size portion of the pie chart is non-compliant to the ANSI standard Z3581 based on performance related issues, okay? The Eyewash wasn't working correctly, iFacewash, the shower wasn't pumping water out correctly, the spray patterns were messed up, it was injurious, there was way too much water and it was, you know, washing your eyes into the back of your skull. It was uneven flow rates, things like that, okay? We do a site survey that is free of charge. It's complimentary. Our goal is only to give you some visibility into some of the compliance issues you might be having on site. And this is how we do it. This is a complimentary survey, 1 day of inspections. We have reps in every state, all across Canada, trained by yours truly, that can do these inspections. And so we highly suggest you reach out to us. You can go to hawsco.com/survey to find out more. We'll send out more information, or you can interact with the next poll question. But this is very real statistics, okay? Well, we've found over, gosh, just an insane amount of surveys that you only have about a 12% chance of finding fully compliant emergency equipment, which is a sad statistic. And the unfortunate truth is they get installed into a corner and nobody checks them, nobody's testing them, and they decay, okay? What you'll get is a full summary report with photos of the findings. It's fully confidential, and we'll leave you with recommendations, and you'll get a debriefing web conference afterwards to talk about the results. So there are some restrictions just based on travel distance, but we have reps in just every state, and they're dashboard heroes. So let us know if you want to know more information about this with poll question number 3, please.
Alrighty, getting into our second to last poll question. Going off what Justin was just talking about, would you be interested in a free site survey of your existing emergency equipment for ANSI compliance? Just gives you two options. Yes, please have someone contact me, or no, thank you. I will give y'all a few more seconds to vote. We appreciate your participation, and thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you incredibly. That is great data for us, hopefully a good resource for you. The other one I want to talk about in here is services, okay? With those inspections and with your own on-site folks maybe probably wanting to focus on your own internal production and things like that, focus on the building and not have to worry about the emergency equipment, consider Haws services. Okay, these are facility and safety professionals fully trained in the ANSI ISEA standard. They will work on Guardian, Encon, Acorn, Haws, whatever color or brand your equipment is, they don't care. They'll come work on it. They'll bring it up to the ANSI standard, take that work off of your building maintenance, your building engineers, etc. They'll do weekly or annual inspections, preventative maintenance contracts, repairs and upgrades, startup and commissioning of equipment, and they can do on-site training and warranty service work too. If you're interested in learning more about Haws services and what they can do for you, please interact with poll question number 4. And again, thank you. There are, I don't think you guys can see the attendees. We have hundreds of you in here. This is a great webinar. So please, we're going to get into the Q&A here in a moment. Allie, go ahead and launch that poll question, and we'll dig into those questions here in a moment.
Great. So as Justin was saying, would you be interested in learning more about how Haws services can help you achieve ANSI compliance? Please select one below, either yes or no. Awesome. Thank you again for participating in all the poll questions we had during this webinar today. I can't emphasize how much we appreciate it. So again, thank you. I'll give you all a few more seconds to vote here, and then I will close out the last poll question of the webinar. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. And so we're getting into the Q&A. Now, Allie's going to feed me the questions that she had from the comment section. We're going to go as quickly as we can to try to answer those. I know we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour, so if you have to bail at 9, we totally understand. I'm probably going to go a little bit over just to ensure we get quite a few of these questions answered, but we will send out a document with the questions and answers after the webinar as well. So Allie, hit me with that first question. While she does that, I'm going to throw up our contact us screen so you can capture some information for yourself if you're interested in reaching out to us.
All right, the first question we have is the requirement for locking open the valves associated with an OSHA standard? If so, which one, please and thank you?
It is not. It is just located in the Z3581 standard. And the main reason for it is just to ensure that employees don't have the power themselves to deactivate something so important, right? The normal, and why I suggest a lotto device is so that that procedure is there in place to guarantee that that device is going to be replaced. Just like we don't want electrical equipment or et cetera charged, energized, we don't want a emergency equipment safety or Eyewash, iFacewash de-energized. We don't want it to not have the capability to provide first aid. And it happens so frequently. Honestly, it happens all the time. We'll go and we'll pull it, there's no water, and we have to hunt down the shutoff valve and it's just closed. Or it's down so far back that it's trickling out. We want those wide open, locked open, so there's zero chance. But there's nothing actually in the OSHA standard saying, hey, lock those valves open. It's just the ANSI Z3581. But again, OSHA references that standard for compliance. So next.
All right, next question. Is it important to look at chlorine levels or other treatment chemicals in the water being used for the emergency shower or eye face wash?
Yeah, I mean, if there's really heavy amounts of chemicals like chlorine and stuff in the water, that wouldn't be ideal. So long as your water is considered potable, it is considered flushing fluid for emergency equipment. Okay. I don't think I've run into a scenario where I encountered heavy, and I have activated thousands of emergency equipment, pieces of equipment. So I don't think I've run into that before. If you're experiencing that, I would maybe test the levels, ensure that it's at a safe level, because we don't want to compound issues, right, during an emergency. But as long as it is considered potable water, by this standard, it is considered safe and usable water. But I would maybe do a little research on your own, have it tested, and ensure we're not going to have any other issues. It's going to burn, right? The likelihood that if it burns, they're not going to stay in the equipment, right? They're not going to do a full 15 minutes. And it may already burn, but it might get a lot worse depending on what you have on your water. So ensure that it's clean, potable water provided to the unit.
All righty. Next question. Are there any installation requirements for wheelchair/ADA when it comes to emergency showers and or eye face washes?
Great question. So that's the other half of what I do. There are absolutely ADA requirements for emergency equipment, okay? But it's based on access, okay? Now, if you're talking about the third level catwalk around a drying machine in a pulp and paper facility, no, okay? You don't need a ADA piece of equipment there, okay? Unless you've somehow given access to it, ramps and etc. Now, if it's in a university, in a lab where you have all walks of life, people that may be dealing with a disability, a wheelchair, walker, and so on, utilizing this equipment, then yes, you absolutely need an ADA accessible, barrier-free emergency equipment, okay? They're available, they're out there, they're lowered to meet toe and knee clearance, height requirements for the eye face wash, and extended pull rods, extended showers. So it's focused on the wheelchair area, etc. So yes, absolutely. Just depends on your area and whether you, again, have had access and whether your facility is publicly accessible as well. So consider those.
All right, next question. Is there a requirement for providing multiple emergency showers if there is a high density of employees?
Very good question. Yes, absolutely. So we deal with that quite frequently. If you have an area where multiple employees may be exposed at the same time, it is incredibly important to have multiple pieces of equipment available for them, and that and just based on my own experience, if I can give that to you, test them at the same time. Have somebody at each piece of equipment and test them. Ensure that your water source is capable of providing 30 minutes of flushing fluid at a pressure that is capable of supplying both pieces of equipment at the same time, okay? There are tempering skids that we provide and things like that that can do that. If you're unable to provide that, you may have to upgrade your line, and make sure that you're checking the safety data sheets for the type of equipment you need. It'll say rinse your eyes for 15 minutes, rinse your skin for 15 minutes. That's a combination unit. Okay, that's in section 4 under the first aid. Ensure you're checking that, you have the proper equipment, you have the proper supply to do multiple pieces of equipment if you have multiple employees that may be harmed at the same time. Okay, let's do a couple more.
All right, next question. Does ANSI require certification for a competent person for the annual inspections?
No, but we highly suggest you do so. Okay, we have a course that you can take. There are other resources out there. It's a test online. You can find it on our website, but we highly, or you can have us train you on site, a bunch of you. We highly suggest doing this so that the folks that are testing truly are trained and qualified, and they're going to catch the issues that you're having. I can't tell you how many times we've come in to do a survey on site after, I'm not going to be mean, X company comes in, they test the equipment, and we have found issues on top of the things that were discovered previously, or they were not testing in accordance with ANSI Z3581 and not discovering the issues. They were just throwing the Eyewash on real quick, not discovering whether there were simultaneous flow issues, starvation issues, and things like that. So make sure they're trained, they know what they're looking for. It's usually inexpensive to get them a certificate and to get them fully trained, and it really does help move the needle towards compliance and a higher safety culture. So we suggest doing it. Let's do one more.
All right, last question. Is the tepid water requirement for both the shower and Eyewash, or just the Eyewash?
Both the shower and the Eyewash. That's a good question. Whether you have an Eyewash, an eye face wash, a shower, or a combination of those, they all have to be within 60 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the temperature. Again, 16 degrees Celsius to 38 degrees Celsius if you're measuring in Celsius. So ensure, regardless of what type of equipment, even portables have to be 60 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So ensure that that equipment is stored properly. If it needs to be freeze protected, it's freeze protected. If it needs to be supplemented by a mixing valve or an instantaneous heater designed for emergency equipment, all of those types of things are available. So ensure that the temperature range is correct and on point thing. So that was a great last question. Okay, so real quick on your screen, I've been Justin Dunn. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Our Haws customer service number and contact information is there. Those guys are seriously awesome. Our customer service team is matched by none. They're incredibly helpful. Give them a call. They're happy to answer any questions, quotes, ANSI information, anything you want, okay? It doesn't matter. Our website is there. It's an incredibly useful tool. Sign up for our e-newsletter. We don't email bomb you. You'll get a newsletter from us every once in a while. Pretty rare compared to other companies. I have some that I swear email me every day. But it has very useful information in there, upcoming webinars, new product information, compliance information, things like that. And then last, on the website, use our live chat function. And we greatly appreciate you coming. We had as usual, a great turnout today. So thank you for being here. Have a wonderful week and enjoy your day. AEC is going to hop on real quick and give you some information about CEU credits.
Justin, thank you so much for an excellent presentation. And Ali, thank you so much for your assistance today as well. The two of you are amazing. We greatly appreciate your time. As well, thank you to everyone for attending today. We hope you found this session to be as informative as I did. Quick reminder, your email with a link to download your certificate will arrive via email within the next 24 hours, and your credit, if applicable, will be reported to AIA within the next 10 to 14 business days. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope you stay safe, be well, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.